Hello and welcome to Two Car Pros. Today we're going to be covering the top 10 automotive flops. Number 10, the Bricklin SV1. The Bricklin SV1 was a gull-winged sports car made between the years of 1974 and 1976 in Canada. It was designed to be a safe and economic sports car. The body was made of fiberglass and bonded acrylic in 5 colors: white, red, green, orange, and suntan, whatever that is. The original engine was planned to be a 360 cubic inch AMC V8, but was soon replaced with a Ford 351 Windsor V8, making just 175 horsepower. As a result, it did not sell well, and there are believed to be around 1,170 that still exist today. Number 9, the Chevrolet HHR. The Chevrolet HHR was designed to compete with the retro-styled, fast-selling Chrysler PT Cruiser, but just sort of didn't. The power ranged from 143 horsepower to 260 horsepower and sold 489,780 units in its 6-year production run, for which a big company like GM, that's going to be considered a flop. Number 8, Plymouth Prowler. The Plymouth Prowler was a hot rod-styled sports car produced from 1997 to 2002. Power came from an aluminum 3.5-liter V6 producing 253 horsepower and had a top speed of 126. But its unique look and lackluster engine failed to sell very well, only shifting 11,702 units. Number 7, Chevrolet SSR. Do you want a slow, retro-styled truck that's not really a truck? Well, that's just what Chevrolet gave us from 2003 to 2006. It was powered by a 6-liter LS2 producing 400 horsepower. The 0 to 60 time was 5.4 seconds and would do the quarter mile in 13.9 seconds. Oh yeah, and it was convertible for some reason, and a bed you really couldn't use. It was not well received and only managed to sell 24,112 units. Although one day maybe GM will do a retro truck off the SSR. Who knows? Number 6, Ford Thunderbird. Many years ago, the Generation 1 Thunderbird was something of a giant slayer. It was taking on the Chevrolet Corvette with its small body and high-powered engine. However, in 2002, Ford created sort of a retro-looking Thunderbird that tried to compete with the Corvette, but just sort of didn't. It used a watery 3.9-liter V8, making just 252 horsepower, which is only a little bit more than the original car. However, being much heavier, it ended up being, well, kind of slow, and a slow sports car just isn't a sports car, and it only sold 68,098 units. Number 5, Pontiac Aztec. Arguably one of the ugliest cars ever made, the Pontiac Aztec was built between the years of 2000 and 2005. It was marketed as a sports recreation vehicle. The idea kind of was you could take this car anywhere and camp anywhere, and it's kind of a tent and kind of a car and kind of a truck, and it can off-road, but it just... well, it sort of didn't. Coupled with a 185 horsepower V6, which is the equivalent of nothing in a vehicle that heavy, it was just not very well received, and the engine only seemed to turn gasoline into noise. Maybe if Breaking Bad came out a little earlier, they would have sold more than 119,000 units. Probably not, though. Number 4, Lincoln Blackwood. How do you take the very best-selling pickup truck in all of human history and reduce it to a flop? It's easy. All you have to do is slap a Lincoln badge on it, have one configuration of black on black on black with 2-wheel drive, and there you have it. And don't forget to tack on 20 grand to the price tag, and that's just what Lincoln did with the Lincoln Blackwood. It had the same 5.4-liter V8 as the F-150, making 300 horsepower and 355 foot-pounds of torque. And it just sort of flopped. Making a luxury truck is one thing, but making a luxury truck with one option, and that's it, and 20 grand on $20,000 on top, makes this nothing short of a flop, only making 3,356 of them in the 15-month production run. Number 3, Etzel. The Etzel is pretty much synonymous with a flop or failure. It was made between 1958 and 1960 and only shifted 118,287 units. Ford lost the equivalent of $2.8 billion in today's money. There is really nothing we can pin too much on the Etzel. You know, it might have been unreliable, but not a lot of cars back then were. So there's nothing I can really point to and say this is the reason why it failed. It was just... right when that car came out, the United States economy went into a bigger, sort of a recession, a decent-sized recession, and it was this massive, expensive car for a market that didn't exist anymore. So just for a financial flop, that's one of the bigger ones.
Number 2, DeLorean.
Okay, the number 2 on this list, I really didn't want to put on this list, but looking at the numbers and looking at it objectively, I do have to put the DeLorean at number 2. I have a special soft spot in my heart for this car. It was my very first car, so don't think I have anything against it, but the numbers don't really lie. It was kind of heavy. It was very unreliable. It only had a 130 horsepower Peugeot Renault Volvo V6 2.5 liters in a car that weighs 2,712 pounds. So it was quite slow. It was originally going to be, competing with the Corvette of that era, and it really didn't. It was originally going to cost $12,000 in the 1980s, but at the end of the production, by the time it got in people's hands or in the showroom, it was at $25,000, which I've done the calculation. That's about $65,000 in today's money, which is absurd for a woefully underpowered car. But I do understand why you'd buy a DeLorean, because it is Italian styled, and you sort of get that magic of a man going out on his own and starting his own car company and maybe doing some shady deals, which he was acquitted for, so all good, right? Only 8,583 of these were made in the original run. However, in Texas, they've started producing brand new DeLoreans made from brand new parts, and they should be available somewhere in 2017 for around $100,000. So we'll see how that works out.
Number 1, Amphicar.
It's a boat, it's a car, it's the Amphicar! Produced in 1961 to 1965 in West Germany, it had a microscopic 1.1 liter inline-4, producing only 38 horsepower. It could achieve 7 knots in the water, which is barely moving, and 70 miles an hour on the road. It's interesting, I put this car at number 1 because every time they put a car on sale, they always go what the market is. This car has almost no market. It's basically non-existent. So that's why I put the Amphicar at number 1. I thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And don't take it too seriously, guys. It's just a flop list. It's just opinions. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.